Hello and welcome to Airheads, a not-so-serious look at the serious business of royal rumours, gossip and gowns. I'm Tom.
And I'm Maeve.
And we want to say a big thank you to everyone who tuned into last week's American Royals Book Club episode.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody that was sending us book recommendations. We will definitely be checking those out, and please send us some more. Keep them coming.
But we did learn of a even more exciting book club this week, which is Archie's book club.
Happy birthday, Archie Harrison, Mountbatten Windsor, the now 1-year-old who was celebrating his birthday on Wednesday with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, who marked his birthday with a video for Save the Children, Save with Stories campaign, which basically features famous people like Jennifer Garner and Amy Adams and loads more reading kids' books to raise funds for some of the families who've been hit hardest by the coronavirus crisis. And this video was shared through the British branch of Save the Children UK's Instagram, which I thought was like a smart little move on their behalf, like clearly very conscious decision.
Yeah, it was a very smart move. It was filmed last weekend by Harry, who is very giddy and very amused by the whole thing. He's like laughing at several points.
Yeah, so
and
sweet.
I loved when he said quack. I've been like basically replaying that in my head ever since, and definitely giving the impression that he is a happy man, not an unhappy man.
I know, we've heard so many stories about how he's struggling, he's finding it very challenging, he's having such a hard time. Obviously, this is like a 3-minute long video. You can take from that whatever you want, but it just seems like a very clear indication that this is a man who's having a lot of fun with his family. Meghan is reading in the video. She's reading the book Duck Rabbit by Amy Krauss Rosenthal to Archie, who's sitting on her lap in a little onesie. Very cute. Archie is the giant baby.
He's so grown up now.
I mean, I know nothing about babies, but he's so big.
Yeah.
And is acting obviously like you think a baby's going to act.
Let's finish this book first, then we'll have that book.
Very easily distracted. He's picking up another book. He's throwing the book on the ground. Meghan picks up the book. He throws the book on the ground again. He's like looking at Harry like, yeah, can you get that? Like, it's good. But then also like he's very sweet, like helping Meghan turn the pages in the book.
Let's go to the next page. Look, Arch.
It was just like so natural. Like at first when I was watching it, I was thinking, oh, like this is like a little bit awkward, and you know, he's not being perfect baby playing along. But then as it went on, you were like, good. You want that impression of a very natural reading, that it doesn't feel staged or contrived or posed. Like they didn't reshoot it over and over again to get the perfect clip.
Good luck trying to reshoot it. He looks like he has a very short attention span, obviously, because he's a baby.
The end of it is so good when it's like,
yay, the end! Woo!
Good job!
Bravo! Bravo!
Yay!
but we need to talk about this book. So what I liked was, as Tom mentioned, it has a sticker on the front of the very chewed cover of the book that says Archie's Book Club, which Oprah confirmed this week that she sent. She often does this. She says to people she really cares about. I know Mindy Kaling also said that when she had her daughter Catherine, that Oprah did the same thing. She'll send like a load of books, like a little library basically for your baby, with these personalized stickers on it.
So cool. Can you imagine? I mean, not only that you would get this book, but that like you would be such good friends with Oprah that your baby can just chew this book. You know, there'll be more presents from Oprah down the line. You know, this book looks like it's had a lot of readings and it's a much loved favourite.
The choice of this book, I feel, is very deliberate and very savvy on Meghan's part, because this book is all about perspective. I'm going to draw on my philosophy degree when I studied philosophy in college, and I'm going to butcher it now by saying that this book is based on a very famous, like the most iconic puzzle picture in philosophy, which is used by Ludwig Wittgenstein to illustrate the distinction between perception and interpretation, or what he describes as between seeing and seeing as. Usually you might say, I see a duck, but in looking at this picture, you will learn to say, I see it as a duck, suggesting that there's more than one way to interpret an image. And he calls this aspect perception, or seeing an aspect, so that you can see it as a duck and also see it as a rabbit. You're seeing two different aspects of the image. The image itself obviously remains unchanged, but the change is in you.
Oh my god. Oh, galaxy brain.
But wouldn't you say it's a very perceptive choice by Meghan?
Oh yeah, this is so clever that there's so many sides to this situation. The situation is what it is, but everyone who is commenting on it or viewing it brings their own assumptions, their own perspective, and really what you say about Harry and Meghan says more about you yourself.
And I'm so delighted that if I am ever blessed with the opportunity to meet Meghan, that now we can talk about Wittgenstein.
I have to say, like, I got back to the flat after, like, my state-mandated time outside, and you said, I've not really done that much on the podcast because I'm just, like, really deep into Wittgenstein at the moment, and I was really lost at that point. I was like, oh, okay. But thank you for explaining it to me.
One thing I thought was absolutely hilarious, that I remember pointing it out to you, that the next day after this very adorable video came out, Fergie, Sarah Ferguson, has been doing this story time with Fergie and Friends thing on YouTube, and she picks a new book every day. And the following day, her book choice was a book called Duck and Goose, which just to me was like the most budget version of Harry and Meghan's video. And like, you know, I guess in a way, a little smart move on her behalf to get headlines that way. I don't even know if she did, though. It was just us following her on Instagram and being like, this woman.
I know. Oh my god.
I want to tell you a wonderful story today. It's a book called Duck and Goose.
Unfortunately, but I mean, I do think it's probably a good thing that the comments on Save the Children's YouTube video of Meghan doing this reading have been disabled.
It's so upsetting because we were talking only last week about Harry reading the introduction to Thomas and Friends episode and how, like, there's nothing controversial here. It's so innocent. Who could have a problem with someone reading to children? And, like, you'd think even when it's your own child, you'd have even less that you could possibly say. But obviously, because it's Meghan, people had problems.
Yeah, this week I learned about an author called Emily Giffin, who I'd never heard of before, but a lot of people tagged us about this, that she wrote Something Borrowed. I guess it's her most famous novel. It was made into a movie with Kate Hudson a few years ago. Haven't seen it. But she also has a new book coming out, so it's going to be fun doing press for that.
Jesus, yeah.
But as well as being an author, she posts a lot about the royals on Instagram. She has like 85,000 followers, but she still was spelling Meghan's name wrong this week. Megan. On Wednesday anyway, she laid in to Meghan over this video. She was posting some truly unhinged things, calling Meghan phony, unmaternal, claiming she turned the video into the Meghan show. She'd shared like a text exchange she'd had with a friend, like personal messages she's been sharing with someone bitching about Meghan. And then she shared a picture of the two of them and wrote, "Happy birthday, Archie, go away, Meghan," which is so extremely dark. It just reminds us that, like, no matter what Meghan does, because as Tom was saying, Harry just did this. Princess Eugenie did it on Fergie's thing and everybody was praising her. Tons of celebrities have done it now. I know Jimmy Fallon, who is a celebrity and obviously not a royal, but he did a video where he was reading to his kids. You know, so many people have done it now, but whatever Meghan does, the goalposts just keep moving. So she's always in the wrong.
Yeah, it's so unfair, and we see it time and time again. Like with Emily Giffin saying, why didn't she film and let Harry read?
I feel like that really gets to the root of a lot of the criticism of Meghan, this idea that she doesn't know her place.
Yeah, and it's all like, she's such a narcissist for putting herself centre stage and she should be making room for the real royals, and she's disrespecting royal tradition.
But I mean, like, what would it look like to uphold these royal traditions? Or what even is royal tradition? Because at its core, to me, it's a celebration of empire and colonialism and all of the attendant suffocating classism and sexism and racism that go along with that. And why should anybody respect that? One of our listeners sent us a piece by the writer Kaylee Donaldson, who writes a lot about the royals. She's very good follow, just in general, if you like film and TV. But anyway, she wrote for Pajiba about the racism of royal fandom. One line I thought was really good was where she says, the unquestioning fetish of an imperialist institution requires you to commit to an agenda of anti-blackness. And anti-Meghan folks have done that with gusto, which is so true.
Completely, and you can see it every time what Meghan does is compared to Kate and what she does. So we've seen this whole narrative developing in the last year in particular about how Kate has like grown into her role as a royal wife and mother, as though that's what she was born to do, and therefore that's what all women should aspire to do in some way.
And just because Meghan doesn't want to do that or doesn't want to be bound by those restrictions, she is therefore like difficult and disruptive, and people say that she doesn't know her place.
Yeah, and it's nuts because Meghan is still being a mother. She is raising money for charity. She's doing all these good things in the same way that, I mean, arguably with the charity stuff, maybe slightly more than what Kate has been doing, but because it's not in this strict way, or there are differences in the way she does things enough for people to criticise, it just gets massively blown up, and she is therefore this disruptive, difficult person.
And we see it as well in all of the criticism of Harry and Meghan staying in the homes of their rich friends. Like the latest rumour that we've heard this week, unconfirmed, is that they're staying in Tyler Perry's mansion in LA. Tyler Perry, who's like a filmmaker and an actor who I honestly only know him from when they talk about him on The Read.
Yeah.
So I find this hilarious that Harry and Meghan are staying in his house. But this move of theirs has really scandalised a lot of British commentators and critics, even though, as we've said before on the podcast, the villa where Kate and Will and their kids stay in Mustique on all their holidays is owned by Will's friend Andrew Dunn, who is a luxury property developer. So they are staying in their rich friend's home.
I'm going to guess he's a white luxury property developer.
And probably a British one as well. But it just shows you that like these very like racist critics just aren't comfortable with a black woman having access to this kind of luxury, and especially the idea that she is friends with other wealthy, powerful black people like Tyler Perry, like Oprah, like Serena Williams, that they're really threatened by this.
These people are so threatened by the idea that she might be self-sufficient and actually not need Harry to get access to these things, that she has her own network of people of colour who are incredibly successful and talented. And it doesn't fit comfortably into this narrative that they're building or trying to build of her being a gold digger and this parasite on the royal family. And it just makes her like harder for them to pigeonhole, which clearly it makes them very angry.
Yeah. And also, you know, since having Archie, Meghan has been subject to really intense mom shaming or mummy shaming or whatever, you know, whether that was how she was holding Archie at the polo or the baby carrier that she had in those paparazzi photos, and now with this new video. And I think, you know, maybe it's not my place to say this, but I think because Archie is very white passing, it seems like a lot of racist critics seem to view him as legitimately royal and a member of the royal family, and almost like Meghan doesn't deserve to mother her own child or something.
Which is disgusting.
Well, yeah, obviously. But, you know, our listeners send us stuff like this every week. Like very vile, racist, sexist things that people have been saying about Meghan, and they say like we should talk about this in the podcast, but I generally don't like doing that because I feel like it just gives it air. Yeah. But you know, every so often it is important to call some of that stuff out because it's, you know, a reminder of why Harry and Meghan left and why the monarchy needs to die.
Yeah. Then we can finally put this whole podcast to bed.
But while we're on the subject of why Harry and Meghan left, we did get some updates this week on the biography that's due out later this summer by Omid Scobie and Carolyn Durand. We talked about it last week, and we talked about how the new name that had come out for it was Finding Freedom. And this week I feel like we've seen so many people criticising the name and saying like this is a really disrespectful title. It's disrespectful to the Queen, suggesting that they didn't have freedom in the royal family, which is like, oh my god, get a grip.
Like, Jesus Christ, have you been paying attention?
Like, who thinks anything about being a woman in the royal family gives you any kind of freedom?
Yeah. So this week, Omid Scobie confirmed that the book is happening, because it wasn't confirmed up until then, and told Harper's Bazaar the book will tell the definitive version of their life together, away from the noise of headlines and mistruths.
And we mentioned last week that the book is described on the HarperCollins website as being written with the participation of those closest to the couple. And there's been a little bit of back and forth about this. So the Daily Beast reported that sources close to Harry and Meghan had been trying to downplay their cooperation with the book, and that earlier this week, when the details of the book first broke, or last week if you're listening to this on Monday, that somebody close to the couple said that the book was not an official or endorsed biography, and that it does not claim to feature interviews with the Duke and Duchess. And that when the Daily Beast asked this source if Harry and Meghan had given an interview for the book or not, the source wouldn't say. If they didn't give an interview, then why not just say they didn't give an interview?
Yeah.
Although they did point out that later in the week, the source came back and was much firmer and said the book won't include interviews with Harry and Meghan. But it does remind us a little bit of like all this fuzziness that's going on in Meghan's lawsuit with the Mail on Sunday over the People magazine interview, and how Meghan has said in her legal filing that she had no idea that her friends were giving that now infamous interview to People magazine where they mentioned the letter that she wrote to Thomas Markle, which suggests that 5 of her friends sat down for a very extensive media interview about her without even contacting her for her approval, which I personally find difficult to believe.
It's pretty interesting then to see that Meghan's camp are effectively making the same claim about her friend's alleged cooperation with the new book, saying we don't know who they've spoken to.
And further to that, the Telegraph's Royal Newsletter this week pointed out that Omid Scobie may have inadvertently compromised Meghan's case by telling Good Morning America back in February of last year that she had intended the contents of the letter to her father to be made public. So he did an interview on ABC back in February 2019 where he said that Meghan knew in her heart of hearts that this was going to be released to the papers. Many of those things in that letter were written with the public in mind. She very much wanted to set the record straight.
So the Telegraph is saying if Meghan always intended the letter to be made public, according to the man who's supposedly writing her side of the story, was it ever really private?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been able to find a clip of where he said this, and from reading the Telegraph's initial report about it in February 2019, I'm not sure if he said this to the Telegraph or if he said this on TV, but this is just what was in the Telegraph's newsletter this week, and it does seem like possibly a bit messy.
I would agree that it seems messy. I can see that this could have come from very pure motives. I would assume, Meghan understands that everything that she does is like a historical document, basically. She's living history. So it's always got to be in her mind that things are going to come to light and things are going to come out. It's just really unfortunate that there's this legal case debating these very exact things. It's also important, I think, for us to note that the publisher of the book is HarperCollins, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch's News Corp, and they also own The Sun. So pretty interesting then that this definitive story that includes stuff from their friends is being published by them.
Let's talk about Andrew.
Yeah,
we haven't talked about Prince Andrew for a while. And we've got a lot of Andrew news this week, which is great for us because we love when people keep hammering him.
Yeah.
So I think the last time we talked about Andrew was when the US prosecutor, Jeffrey Berman, had said that there had been zero cooperation from Andrew in his investigation into Epstein and his associates. Now, Berman is saying they have communicated, but we have been informed that he is not willing to submit to an interview. And further to that, David Boyes, a lawyer who represents more than a dozen of Epstein's victims, gave an interview to the Daily Mail where he said Andrew has not been prepared to cooperate and has ignored 3 formal requests to be interviewed under oath about his friendship with Epstein. He said they have sent 3 formal written attempts to his address in London and also to his lawyers.
And this was like the big problem a few months ago, was that you're not meant to send the letters just to Andrew. You've got to go to his legal team. It's like, well, we did that as well and still no response. So Boyes seems really to have hit the nail on the head with this one thing he said. Often people in his position are surrounded by advisors who sometimes think that they will be more valued if they come across as very aggressive on their principal's behalf. And that can lead to somebody not getting very good advice. it can be hard to tell your principal that he's got to do something he doesn't want to do. And from everything we've heard about Andrew, like, that couldn't be more true, in my opinion.
Or with a lot of the royals.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
like being surrounded by yes men, for sure.
Absolutely. So David Boies also said, and I found this like so interesting, that he believes that there is footage of the prince inside Epstein's properties. And this is like, in addition to that video that we've all seen of him peeking out the door, letting somebody out. So he said, whether it continues to exist, has been destroyed, or if it continues to exist and is being concealed, is something we're going to have to try find out. We are quite confident, both in physical evidence and from interviews, such surveillance tapes did at one point exist.
We got a little bit more on what Andrew was getting up to in Jeffrey Epstein's homes from a woman, a former model, who was close to Epstein. She's not named, but she's given this exclusive interview to the Mail on Sunday, where she talks about what she saw Andrew doing in Epstein's Manhattan home, which is the home where we saw him opening the door in that horrible video. She was in that New York home at the same time as Andrew, when Andrew made his like breakup visit in December 2010. And she says Epstein arranged for 3 women in their early 20s to visit Andy, and that they were told to dress up beautifully.
Ooh.
That at least 2 of these alleged meetings were during the December 2010 visit. But, like, if we remember, in his BBC Newsnight interview, Andrew insisted that the sole purpose of his visit at that time was to cut ties with Epstein. However, this woman says that Andrew treated Epstein's house like it was his and stayed in an opulent bedroom that was dubbed Room Britannica.
So horrible.
Gross!
So
gross!
She says that Epstein used Andrew to attract women to his home and as a promotion tool to rebuild his reputation after he spent 13 months in jail following his conviction for sex offences back in 2008. And he promised these young women that their reward for meeting Andrew would be a bright career future, powerful connections, and money.
She also says that Andrew asked one of the women whether she had a boyfriend.
God.
And this, to me, is like the weirdest bit. She claims that Epstein bragged about watching The King's Speech, the Colin Firth movie, with Andrew in an exclusive screening at his home before its UK release, and that Andrew may have had his feet massaged by a woman while watching the movie.
Honestly, so grim. So grim.
I don't know if I'll ever be able to watch that movie again.
Were you planning on watching it again?
Her allegations just really add to this pile of claims about how Epstein was allegedly trying to lure girls and women with the promise of meeting a prince.
A real life Prince Charming.
Which is like fucking disgusting and which nobody should forget. But one of Andrew's friends took it upon themselves to go and talk to the Telegraph about those interview requests and why Andrew wasn't sitting down for these interviews. The friend said, "A request from a commercial law firm is not and never will be the same as an official judicial process. No decent legal team would ever recommend cooperating with for-profit civil lawyers. These very same law firms would do well to focus on the Department of Justice investigation and work harder to secure justice for the survivors of Epstein. Instead, they're playing a PR game at the expense of the Duke, which gives their clients the impression of progress but brings them no closer to justice. The US law firms have been getting away with this tactic for a decade, so it's high time to call them out." Fuck!
This friend seems to have a lot of legal knowledge or legal opinions anyway.
I know, Lainey Gossip pointed out that putting this kind of comment in the mouth of a friend makes it sound a little bit softer than if it were coming from a member of Andrew's legal team,
Yeah.
which would also remind readers that Andrew has a legal team.
Yeah,
Why does he need one of those? But what she argues is like, why not cooperate with for-profit lawyers? Money is the last thing that is owed to these women, and that's obviously all that's left now that Epstein is dead. And if you don't like the for-profit lawyers, then why not cooperate with federal prosecutors and the FBI, because he's not doing that either.
Yeah, and to accuse these lawyers of playing a PR game is pretty sickening, given that Andrew just the other week did his own PR stunt of bagging cupcakes with Fergie and then making her assistant. Sorry, not making her, but these photos that came to light through Fergie's assistant, the 10 photos all of Andrew.
Yeah. And speaking of money being the last thing that's owed to these women, it looks like Prince Andrew and Fergie owe a lot of money on a Swiss chalet that they bought together. They have £5 million in unpaid bills. £5 million he hasn't paid on this. Andrew and Fergie bought this chalet together in 2014, but according to Le Temps newspaper, as reported by Sky News, they did not meet a deadline of paying off the part of the sum for the 7-bedroom chalet that was owed in December 2019. Buckingham Palace have declined to comment on this, but a spokeswoman for Andrew said, "We can confirm there is a dispute between the two parties in this matter. The contractual details remain the subject of a confidentiality agreement and prevent further discussion."
This is a holiday home that cost £18.3 million.
Insane.
And again, we went to Lainey for some more analysis of it, who points out that the sale was 3 years after Fergie had to borrow money from Epstein, and 4 years after she was caught trying to charge someone £500,000 just for access to Andrew. So where did all the money come from to buy this massively expensive chalet?
Yeah, 3 years ago, he didn't have enough money to give his wife a loan, had to negotiate that through Epstein, and suddenly he has, or believes he's able to afford an £18 million home. But I guess what happened in those 3 years? One of the things that happened was that Andrew launched Pitch at Palace. And, ostensibly he was hosting these events because he was so interested in helping people launch their careers in business. But as we've heard since, there was some confusion around whether he may have been getting a cut from the deals, and they had to clarify that, and we're still not sure what was going on there. But Lainey points out that the story about the unpaid bills is out there, but are people asking questions about how he thought he'd actually be able to afford it? I get it, even royals overextend themselves financially just like commoners, but at a certain point, the Queen's beloved second son and his ex-wife and life partner were confident that they'd be able to pay for a place worth that many millions, when at one point they had to beg a paedophile for some cash.
She says, "You're telling me this doesn't stink?" And you have to agree. But something else that stinks, apparently, is the Prince Andrew Charitable Trust, which is being investigated by the Charity Commission, according to the Sunday Times today.
This is intriguing. So they are to report on a number of issues after the regulator raised a concern about the payment of £355,297 over 5 years to Amanda Thirsk, who is Andrew's former private secretary, and she's also a former trustee of the charity. The Times report notes that the Duke of York's household repaid the funds to the trust, and there is no suggestion of any wrongdoing by Thirsk. The Financial Times also reported on this, and they were talking to a barrister who said most charities are super sensitive to the need to comply with the strict laws around trustee benefit. It is unfathomable to me that a grown-up charity like Prince Andrew's Charitable Trust got this so wrong. So he was paying his private secretary out of the charity's funds and only reimbursed the charity after he was called out. What I thought was even more interesting, though, was that the Financial Times also just generally observed that Andrew has unusual finances. It wrote, he does not receive a direct public grant and instead has relied on income from his commercial activities.
This is big. Like, I don't think you're allowed to have private commercial activities when you're an HRH.
I know. And as well, this is like the tip of the iceberg. As we were just saying with the chalet, like, what's the deal? Why does he think he has enough to afford an £18 million home? And then he's getting loans all over the place. He's having to pay his private secretary out of his charity.
What is going on?
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we get some follow-up on this. But back to the charitable trust, according to the Sunday Times, the trustees are finalising a plan to liquidate the trust and its subsidiaries, which is just like another humiliation for Andrew. And they have some really good quotes from royal sources talking about this. So one of them, who knows the Queen and Philip, says, the public has got no sympathy for the Duke of York. Whilst all this hangs over him, it turns people off. I don't see any way that he can come back to public duties or military appointments. It's toxic beyond the Epstein case, which he doesn't seem to be actively trying to address or cooperate with.
And another source agrees there's no way back for Andrew. He's a busted flush, which I hadn't heard before, but I love/hate. They go on, nobody in royal circles or the public seems to be mourning his absence from public life. The Queen is a pragmatist. She'll be fully aware of how people feel.
I just roll my eyes at this. You know, was she fully aware of how people would feel when she did those much photographed car rides to church with him, the horse riding escapade, you know?
She certainly seemed to do her most to try and change that public opinion at the time, but maybe she's accepted it now. I mean, she's such a pragmatist, the Queen, that according to the Sunday Times, she is going to withdraw from public life for months in what is expected to be the longest absence from official duties in her 68-year reign.
I don't really know why people are freaking out so much about this. Like, it basically just sounds like she's knocking off early for the summer holidays. I do think it's really funny. Like, I think it was last week we saw a video of Princess Anne doing her first like video call with a charity, and it was just like everything about it was like, I'm not into this. I don't want to do this. And I feel like the Queen would be the same. The Queen doesn't want to be Zooming with people for her engagements. So instead, she is going to be doing no engagements and not moving between her homes at all until the threat from coronavirus clears, according to the Sunday Times. So she would usually go to Balmoral for the summer, but instead she's going to be staying in Windsor Castle indefinitely. And as well as that, Buckingham Palace, I mean, this is no surprise really, Buckingham Palace will be closed to visitors. It usually opens to the public for the summer, and this is thought to be the first time in 27 years that's going to be closed. So it just makes sense.
Yeah.
They have a royal source saying the Queen won't do anything which goes against the advice of people in her age category, and she's going to take all the appropriate advice. She'd want to be seen to be being responsible in her actions. All the more time to catch up on Mrs. Brown's Boys.
Well, you know, all of Doctor Who is on BritBox, so maybe they've got that in Windsor Castle.
Let's move on to the Cambridges. So we got a nice little story on Kate Middleton's new photography project this week. She is calling on Britain to capture photographs of life in lockdown in partnership with the National Portrait Gallery, of which she is royal patron.
So this is images that would take in kind of nurses on the front line, the realities of homeschooling, all the things that we know Kate has been really taken by over the last few months now. But she's encouraging submissions from members of the public, and that's including amateur photographers like herself. And from those submissions, 100 will be chosen and curated into an exhibition called Hold Still.
She said about the project, Hold Still aims to capture a portrait of the nation, the spirit of the nation, what everyone is going through at this time. Photographs reflecting resilience, bravery, kindness, all those things that people are experiencing. So, I mean, it's a very nice project. Like, I think we said this before, last time she did like a photography project. It makes so much sense to capitalise on her own interests and skills. And as well as that, this is a very important project that the National Portrait Gallery are doing, and it will be an important historical record and a document of this time in years to come. And to have Kate attached to it, I mean, that's the whole job of the royal patron. It brings so much attention to it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure the legwork is being done by the people at the National Gallery, but it's a great thing to be attached to. And it's probably a relief to her to be able to talk about something that isn't homeschooling and like, how are you doing with your kids? What are your kids doing? Are you being good mummy to your kids?
She was asked about that, though. I really like she gave her little photography tips. So she was on TV this week. She did an interview with Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby on ITV's This Morning. And here are her tips.
One of the fantastic things about photography is really capturing that moment. So it's not stage setting it, it's not setting it up perfectly, it's not clearing your house away so you've got a perfect studio set up, but it's really capturing those moments that feel real to you and that capture a moment or an expression or a feeling, I suppose. And that's the power of photography. It can capture a moment and tell a story.
She even had a few jokes about Louis's birthday portrait.
Oh, that was good.
She said,
I should have taken a photograph of what I look like after that as well. I look like Louis at the end of this.
That's good. I want to see those pictures.
Yeah, I feel like we need to see those
Formal
pictures.
request to release the footage. But I know you were most interested in the moment where she was asked about homeschooling and the challenges of trying to teach kids of different ages, when she said
George gets very upset because he just wants to do all of Charlotte's projects, like making sort of spider sandwiches, as far cooler than doing literacy work.
I looked up spider sandwiches and I can confirm that that is true.
What subject do you do spider sandwiches for?
Food tech? Maybe.
I just like the idea that George is so upset that he's just destroying all of Charlotte's spider sandwiches and just making them himself. There was a piece last month that we missed, and I found this weekend. I just thought it was so funny that I wanted to talk about in The Sun, talking about Kate's approach to parenting. And it says that the Cambridges may be one of Britain's most elite families and live in a palace, but Kate Middleton is managing to give her kids the Enid Blyton upbringing she craved for them.
This is so funny because, like, the idea that an Enid Blyton famous five style upbringing is available to anybody other than those at the very top of the British class system is, like, totally preposterous.
Yeah, it's so funny. And they talk to a source who is, like, insisting that Kate really just wants a down-to-earth childhood for her kids, just like the one she had. Even though Kate obviously went to, like, a really exclusive boarding school, she was taking family holidays to some private Caribbean islands. The idea that that is down-to-earth is
very funny.
Very funny to me. But the source goes on, she ensures their lives are outdoorsy and full of, here we go, tree climbing, swimming, making dens, growing their own flowers and vegetables, team games, dog walking. It's a solid, balanced, kind family life that she always experienced in Bucklebury.
Oh, back to Bucklebury.
One of my least favourite words. Also pointed out, bird watching with binoculars is another favourite of the kids.
Bullshit.
I don't believe
Bullshit. No kid loves looking through binoculars at birds. It sounds like, honestly, a bit too full on, all this tree climbing and swimming.
I mean, it's just so over the top to have anybody from the Cambridge camp ringing up the Sun and, like, just harping on about this Enid Blyton childhood, especially at a time when so many people don't have access to these kind of outdoor spaces.
Yeah.
They don't have binoculars to do bird watching. Maybe their kids just want to be, like, glued to the tablet all day, and that's fucking fine.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just doing way too much, as usual.
So if this piece didn't kind of shatter the relatable illusion of Cambridge life for you, then Will certainly did this week. He sort of ruined the relatable content by reminding everyone that they not only have a helicopter and a helipad, but it's one that they're not even using at their second mansion home that they're not at.
This was reported by a number of places. I liked it in Tatler. They wrote, Prince William continues to shine amidst the pandemic, doing what he can to serve the NHS and the UK in the best way he can as a royal. This is the best way he can. His latest move is no different. The Duke of Cambridge has granted permission for air ambulances to land and refuel at Kensington Palace on a patch of grass that would ordinarily be reserved for royal family helicopters.
It really made me think, actually, I could give my helipad to the NHS.
I mean, it also reminded us of the story a few weeks ago that Prince William was seriously considering returning to his role with the air ambulance. It's all just so out of touch. And, like, I don't even know how this stuff works. Like, does he have control over the helipad? Can other people take command of it if they need it? Like, and to think that he should be getting credit for doing this is absurd.
And I hope that there's going to be similar stories about when he starts denying the use of this helipad again.
I loved this week. So we thought Kate had outdone herself when she had the homemade pasta deliveries for Charlotte's birthday. But sitting in Burke Hall between her house party calls, Camilla was scrolling through Instagram, saw those pics and said, hold my beer, or hold my claret. And she whips into the kitchen, grabs the KitchenAid and starts making biscuits.
Very pale biscuits.
I mean, they did remind me of the shortbread, the
Yeah.
Dutchy shortbread.
Okay, yeah.
Now, maybe they may have just had some of those lying around. They could be repurposed. But I know shortbread can be very pale, so maybe they were shortbread biscuits. It wasn't specified. I would like Camilla's next step to be releasing the recipe.
Yes, please.
But, okay, why was she making biscuits?
So this was to celebrate VE Day, and I can assure you this is the only bit of VE Day content we thought was worthwhile reporting on. But she made the biscuits for 2 veterans who served in the 7th Armoured Division that were in North Africa in World War II, and her father was in that regiment and served at that time. So it looks like each vet got 4 biscuits, according to the photos. They're, like we said, kind of pale, but that might be because they possibly are shortbread. And they're decorated with this printed icing with really naff, like, V graphics celebrating the VE Day that it was. But the whole documentation of the delivery were these kind of crap photographs.
So funny.
They were like really grainy, really poorly lit, just not very appetizing at all.
Is that to say you wouldn't eat Camilla's biscuits if she sent them to you?
I mean, I'd keep them forever. I suppose if I got 4, I'd eat 1.
We also got these really funny pictures of Camilla and Charles meeting their postman. So a socially distant meeting, 2 meters between them, which were released to accompany the news that Charles had written a letter to everyone at Royal Mail to say thank you for their work. A letter that they left on the bench on their porch outside Burke Hall, and then the postman came and picked it up.
Yeah, he was delivering these big packages, so we got to see Camilla holding her package, and in return he got this letter that Charles also released as kind of audiobook version of. He's got, honestly, such a distinctive voice, and I really want to know whether he's talked to Meghan about doing voiceover work or narration.
He's really emerged as, like, a voiceover star in quarantine.
The voice of quarantine.
For you. Okay, but aside from all of your fan mail, what do you think was in Camilla's massive parcels that she was receiving on the doorstep?
I think it could have been a homebrew kit. Or possibly, like, ballet slippers?
What about a little leotard, maybe?
Okay, I think that's enough in this episode. Let's wrap up now.
Before we go, I want to talk about Quote of the Week, because we got a really excellent one this week, which comes from Jennifer Garner, the actress, star of one of my favourite shows, Alias, and one of my favourite movies, 13 Going on 30. Jennifer Garner is spearheading the Save With Stories campaign along with Amy Adams for Save the Children, and she reshared the video of Meghan and Archie with quite a long caption. But my favourite bit was where she said, "Watching you lovingly talk through the pictures while your clever Archie turns the pages lifts all of us up and reminds us that what may seem like a duck just might turn out to be a rabbit. Thank you for this joyful and meaningful shift in perspective."
And thank you for this concise explanation of Wittgenstein's aspect perception.
Obviously, she has been following Meghan's journey and wants to point out to everybody that there's 2 sides to every story.
2 sides to every duck. What about Fit for a Queen, Maeve?
I continue to be impressed by Kate Middleton's Zoom style. I liked her outfit that she wore on This Morning with Phil and Holly. It was a yellow silk dress with a tree print. Not the easiest print to wear, but I thought she really pulled it off. It was by the British label Ray, I think that's how you pronounce it, the in-house brand from Matches Fashion. I don't think she's publicly worn anything from them before, but it was very cool, very modern, very unfussy. I'd like to see her wearing more of their stuff. Also, she was wearing her fern earrings that we've seen before by Catherine Zureda, and I thought she gave herself a very nice bouncy blowout. I really like the way she was doing her hair in lockdown, because it's a lot more natural than the kind of sausage curls that we sometimes see her
Do you think
having
Will
public.
helps?
Absolutely the fuck not. Do you?
I mean, it's not like he's got hair of his own to spend time on.
I felt like yellow isn't really one of Kate's go-to colours, but it was lovely, soft, very pretty, cheerful outfit for a morning show. And as well as that, all the graphics for This Morning are this kind of bright minty green colour. And the print, the tree print detail, the colours in that really picked up nicely on that, I thought. So when she was on screen with the little title banners underneath, it made for a lovely screenshot. Which brings us to first in line. Who's first in line this week, Tom?
It's got to be Meghan, I think.
Why is that?
Well, that video was just great. It was so heartwarming. It was really cute. Obviously, it was great to see all three of them like really happy. They just seemed so great together. It was very like relatable content. I loved that they showed that parenting doesn't go perfectly, and there's always these kind of little things you kind of have to manage, and they managed it with great humour.
Yeah, and as well, like, I know we had talked about when we were saying after the rainbow paint pictures of Louis and then the pasta delivery pictures of Charlotte, we were like, are Harry and Meghan going to try to compete with this? The bar has been set very high. But I like that they just kind of knocked the bar down. They were like, no, we're going to do things our own way. Also, that, you know, this is this very kind of weird royal tradition where you're meant to release a picture of your kid every year on their birthday. And I felt like it was a nice way of like modernizing it and doing it on their own terms and also doing it for a good cause.
Yeah, really good idea.
And that was also like a very clever way of getting around the fact that they don't have social media. Channeling it through Save the Children was a nice way to do that.
It's like an interesting expansion of the way they used to only follow a certain few people every month, and that you would be like directed to those pages. Now they don't even have that Instagram account, but they're still able to kind of pick up the causes that they like.
And Save the Children has royal connections. Princess Anne is patron of Save the Children UK. But I think in general, what just delighted me and enraged me at the same time is how Meghan can just make people so mad by doing the most inoffensive, adorable stuff for charity, and people will just show their fucking asses, like losing their minds over this. And I wonder what kind of impact this is going to have for that author with her new book coming out. I mean, I've certainly seen people saying they went and gave her books 1-star reviews on Goodreads, which I think is very stupid and people shouldn't do that. But I do think she's going to follow her around on every interview she does. It's going to be top of every interviewer's mind.
Well, what's top of your mind for next week?
Well, we are approaching the 2-year anniversary of Harry and Meghan's wedding. So, as we talked about before, we wanted to do a little flashback episode. We actually have never watched the full wedding because when we were there...
Because we were actually there, guys.
Because when we were there, you had to go look at it on a screen. You couldn't hear it. Anyway, so we've only seen clips of it, so we thought we'd sit down and watch the whole thing, and then next week we can talk about our experience being in Windsor on that beautiful day, and also just like looking at the ceremony with 2 years hindsight.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I can't believe we never watched it. It seems like mad now.
I know. I mean, we've seen all the important bits, but it's the smaller bits that will be interesting, I think. Yeah. If there's anything in particular you guys are interested in or want to flag with us that you'd like us to talk about next week, please let us know. You can send us an email at airheadspod@gmail.com or find us on Instagram and Twitter at airheadspod, on Facebook at airheads.
And if you like this episode, please leave us a 5-star review and tell a friend.
Yeah, thank you so much for the reviews you got recently. They've been really fun to read.
Yeah.
I know Tom has been really languishing in everybody saying how much they love his voice. I have not heard the end of that.
Stop. Why do you have to bring that up, Maeve? Oh.
But we hope you all have a great week and come back and join us next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Duck rabbit.